Did you see it? There, I'm sorry. I apologized sincerely to her. What I'd accidentally seen was running through my mind. She looked as if she were about to cry, and I felt awful about it. But unfortunately, the image in my head was not going to fade away. What I had seen of her had a significant impact on me. My name is Taylor Mason. After graduating from university, I joined the workforce like any other newbie. There was still a lot for me to learn at work, and to top it off, my boss was a hardcore jock. I was often scolded for repeating the same mistakes every day. "Hey, Mason, you've made another data entry error. How many times is this now?" "I'm sorry." I was the worst performing member among my peers. I had always been bad at managing multiple tasks, which led to me making more mistakes when there's a lot to do. I was constantly getting yelled at work, and I couldn't help but sigh, wondering how things came to this. In university, all I had to do was understand the lecture content, so my grades were good. I thought I'd be able to manage in the real world too, but I was wrong. In reality, I was just a bottom-tier employee who kept making mistakes, and I was starting to despise myself. One day, carrying all these feelings, I bought a microwave dinner from a convenience store on my way home from work. I simply didn't have the energy to cook for myself. I usually got home late at night. And since I lived in a small apartment, there was rarely anyone around. As usual, I opened my apartment door, and that's when it happened. Meow. A cat came up to me. The fur was too clean for a stray, and the cat seemed used to people. This apartment allows pets, so it might belong to someone, but where did it come from? As I was wondering about this, the cat sauntered into my apartment through the open door. "Hey, you can't just go in. Fluffy, has Fluffy come back?" Hearing the cat's meow, my neighbor burst out of her door. I turned to look. She was a woman, probably in her early 20s, and she had rushed out in a worn-out sports bra. I was speechless. She had come out in such a hurry that she was barefoot, and she was showing so much skin that I panicked for a moment, thinking she was naked. When she saw that her cat had entered my apartment, she said, "I'm sorry, that's my cat." Oh, here, she realized that she was only in her underwear and turned her face bright red. "I'm sorry, that's my cat. I'll get him out right away." With that, she rushed back into her apartment, returning in about 30 seconds. She was clearly just wearing a hoodie over her sports bra. I didn't want the cat to get hurt inside my apartment, but I was also hesitant to invite a woman into my place at night. So, I said, "I'll try to catch the cat. Just wait here," and attempted to catch the cat. But I couldn't. Was it always hard to catch a cat? Left with no other choice, I had to ask the woman to come inside and catch the cat herself. The cat didn't resist when the woman tried to catch it. It just went with the flow. "I'm sorry for the trouble. I'll make it up to you another day." Saying that, the woman left as it was getting late. Well, she was dressed quite oddly. The next Saturday, the woman came to visit, bringing some sweets with her. I led her into the room to check if the cat hadn't broken anything, and we sat down for a cup of tea. Honestly, since I had led her in my room yesterday, I didn't resist much. Her name is Julia Roberts. She seemed to be a college student, and from the big shoulder bag she brought, it seemed she probably planned to study somewhere after this. She owned a cat named Fluffy. Actually, yesterday Fluffy went out onto the balcony, and I heard him crying at night, so I rushed out in such a strange outfit. Julia was blushing as she explained. "Oh, Fluffy scratched me up pretty bad. It's even more embarrassing to be seen like this. Cats can be quite a handful, huh? I heard cats scratch everything around them when they need to sharpen their claws. So, their clothes got scratched occasionally. but it costed a lot to buy new ones each time, so they wore them when they're not meeting anyone. I'm really sorry for the trouble. Don't worry about it. Just take good care of your cat. Julia thanked me again and got up to leave. But at that moment, her shoulder bag fell over and all the documents inside spilled out. Are you okay? As I scrambled to gather the papers, she exclaimed, No, no. She quickly snatched the papers away from me. But I had seen it. The documents were notices of re-examinations from her university. And there were so many of them. The number of re-examinations was so large, it made me worry about her credit completion. Did you see it? Yes, I'm sorry. I apologized sincerely. At that, Julia blushed deeper than when she had been seen in her underwear, her face on the verge of tears. Everyone says it. They say college is a piece of cake if you attend lectures, but it's impossible for me. I'm not smart. Wah. Overwhelmed with emotion, Julia collapsed right where she stood. It seemed her academic performance was severely to the point where not only graduation, but even progressing to the next grade was in jeopardy. She had always been made fun of for her grades, and it seemed she had developed a complex, or rather, a trauma about it. Well, if you want, I could help you with your studies. No, I went to the same university. I took the same courses you're having re-examinations for. Really? What a coincidence. Julia was attending the same university I had. So that made her my junior. Julia was quick to take up on my offer. It seemed she had tried asking her friends for help with her studies before, but kept making the same mistakes, and they had given up on her. Well, I did have good grades in university, and depending on the subject, there are tips and tricks. Maybe if I taught her those, she might just make it. So, we decided to have a study session every Saturday. Well, after seeing the sheer amount of re-exams she was facing, I was quite worried and couldn't get it off my mind. I finished work and bought dinner on the way home, so I got home a bit late. So, I had planned to make our break on Saturday, but it turned out that Julia had an imagination that far exceeded my expectations. She was constantly coming up with answers that I had no idea how she arrived at. Honestly, our weekly study sessions were not enough. So, I decided to add additional study sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays at Julia's house. This was also because Julia suggested, let me cook dinner as a thank you for the study sessions. Teaching someone is also a way of studying for yourself, so I made an effort to explain the problems that Julia seemed to have difficulty with in a way that was easy to understand. Julia seemed to be studying hard in her own way and gradually improved her grades. As for me, I started to take more notice of my surroundings and my minor mistakes decreased. The number of days I could get through without being shouted at increased, and there were fewer hard times at work. And then, 6 months later, I did it. I don't have any resits anymore. Finally, Julia was freed from the hell of resits. Julia was able to understand the lectures after 6 months of study, and she no longer needed my help. It felt a little lonely, but I should be genuinely happy for her growth. Well done, you worked really hard. If you don't understand something, tell me, okay? Yes, thank you. The study meetings ended with that, but the habit of meeting for half a year didn't just disappear. So, I had the chance to eat Julia's dinners occasionally, and I also invited her for meals. We also talked about things like what kind of company to work for and other life advice. A few months passed like this, and Julia was able to move up a grade. I was thinking of giving her a present to celebrate her advancement. Just as I was thinking about this while heading to work, there was something on my desk. It was a document, but not just any document. personnel change, and I'm the assistant to the president. I was dumbfounded by the document informing me of an unexpected personnel change. Suddenly, my boss patted my shoulder and I jumped. "The president is calling for you. Follow me." With that, my heart was about to jump out of my chest. What did I do? I desperately tried to remember, but I couldn't think of anything. I made my way to the president's office with a stiff body. There were guests in the president's office besides the president. It seemed that I had been called to the president's office because these guests wanted to see me. "Sorry for calling you all of a sudden. These are the owners of Roberts Inc., our business partners." Introduced by the president, I bowed my head. "Wait, Roberts? That's the same surname as Julia. What a coincidence." As I sat on the sofa as directed, the Roberts couple smiled at me. "Nice to meet you. We are from Roberts Inc. No, let's leave the title aside. We came here as parents to thank you and ask you a favor," the president of Roberts said to me. I was completely lost for words and just stared blankly. "Actually, the Julia you've been tutoring is our daughter. We heard that she was able to move up a grade thanks to your help. Thank you so much." No, it was all thanks to Julia's efforts that she was able to move up a grade. So, it turned out that Julia was the president's daughter. I had no idea. I was just surprised. According to Mr. Thompson, the CEO, Julia had her pride and wanted to fend for herself without depending on her parents. It seemed that she started living on her own because of this. "I heard about you from my daughter. I wanted to express my gratitude for everything you've done for her, and I apologize for the inconvenience, but would you please continue to help her with her studies?" he said. With these words, both the CEO and his wife bowed deeply in thanks. What? Please lift your heads," I protested. Being shown such respect by the CEO, a man like me, just an ordinary employee, felt quite awkward. After a few insistences, they finally raised their heads. Apparently, Julia had always had bad grades since she was young. She had received tutoring from various people, but it seems the only one who could make a real difference was me. Julia trusted me, and the ridiculous personnel change that made me the CEO's secretary happened so that it would be easier for me to adjust my work schedule. Our CEO was quite capable, so he didn't need an assistant. His permission allowed me to go to Julia's place at any time. In other words, I don't have any right to refuse. But why did the CEO go to such lengths? Was it simply because he valued this business relationship that much? Actually, we've been friends since we were kids. You know, the so-called best buddies. I've known Julia since she was a little girl, and I've been as troubled as anyone else by her academic performance," he revealed. Because I seemed puzzled, the CEO was kind enough to explain our relationship. Apparently, when Julia was in high school, the CEO used to supervise her studies. She managed to pass her college entrance exams, but it seems she ended up in a sort of remedial hell. Of course, my salary remained the same even though my department had changed, so it's a win-win situation for me, or so it should be. However, this lack of a right to refuse showed me the frightening power that adults with authority hold. And so, it was decided that I would be taking care of Julia, approved by both her parents and the company. Julia's academic performance has improved slightly, but I can't let my guard down. She seemed to have received a failing grade in a new course she started right after advancing to the next grade. Your assistance again would be much appreciated. Likewise, I responded. Julia looked a bit embarrassed, but I felt rather glad to have this connection with her. In this way, I supported Julia and was sometimes supported by her, and before I knew it, Julia is now my wife. You never know what life has in store for you. Who would have thought that the college girl I saw in her underwear the first time we met would become my wife? But it seems Julia is still hung up on the mountain of remedial notices, more so than the fact that I saw her in her underwear, playfully telling me to take responsibility for that time as she asks me to help her study. Though the studying she was referring to now was not academic learning, but rather business manners and other basic knowledge for working adults. The CEO was also delighted. Who would have thought that Julia would grow so much? He's an amazing person who single-handedly started the company and continues to grow it. The level of the Harpo performance that even such a CEO struggled with. I still don't know about Julia's past grades, but it seems it's better not to know about it. That's how I'm happily living my life now. But when I really think about it, the catalyst for me discovering Julia's retake notices was when Fluffy wandered into my room. In that sense, I should really be thankful to Fluffy for dropping by my room. Meow. The Cupid of our love spent another day curled up under the sunshine. Man, that was a close call. On the night my wife told me she wanted a divorce. By tomorrow, we won't be husband and wife anymore. Thinking about that, I can't help but feel regretful. My name is Robert Johnson, 50 years old. I've lived for half a century, but right now, I'm undoubtedly facing the biggest crisis in my life. Right in front of me, on the familiar living room table, there is a divorce paper. And all the blanks where my wife, Catherine, is supposed to fill out are already filled in. She sprung the news of the divorce on me one morning, after we've shared 23 years of life together. At first, I thought I must be dreaming or still half asleep. What is this? Some kind of joke? Do I look like I'm joking? But Catherine had a serious look on her face. Catherine meant it. The moment I realized that, I panicked. Because I couldn't for the life of me understand why she'd want a divorce. Of course, I love Catherine and I haven't cheated on her. It doesn't seem like she's found someone else, either. Catherine, crying softly, started to explain the situation to me. The reason for the divorce was the relationship with my mom, the mill. I knew that there was a mildew issue. My mom had always had a grudge against Catherine because she only had a high school diploma. Listen, you should go to college. High school grads can't get good jobs and they lack common sense. You'll only end up suffering if you're with them. This has been my mom's mantra for as long as I can remember. My mom raised me as a single mother and even put me through college. My high school grad dad left us for another woman and debt. That's why she hates high school grads. Of course, there's some truth to that. But there are people with no common sense in the world, whether they are college or high school graduates. In Catherine's case, she lost her parents early on and had to start working right after high school to support herself. She is very responsible, and I've never found her to be unreasonable. I managed to convince my mom to agree to our marriage, and I've stepped in a few times to mediate their disputes, but it seems she's been bad-mouthing Catherine behind my back. But Catherine has been enduring all this. As I've said before, I was raised by a single parent, and the only relative Catherine could rely on was my mom. So, now that our daughter Lily is 23 years old and getting married this year, she's brought up the subject of divorce. Your mother will be attending the wedding, right? You know, your mother told me if you come, it'll be a hassle for Lily. Don't come to the ceremony. I never thought I'd be told not to attend my own daughter's wedding. I've put up with this for so long, but I can't take it anymore. I can't live with your mother anymore, and I don't want to. And you didn't help me. I can't believe you. So, you're saying you hate me now? In my shock, I blurted out some unnecessary words. With a trembling voice, Catherine clearly stated, I don't know right now. but I do hate your mother," and then she got up and ran crying into our bedroom. I'm ashamed to say that I was too shocked to move. I thought I was doing my part to keep my mom from hurting Catherine, but it wasn't enough. I had thought I was helping, but I failed to notice the strain on Catherine as she bore her limits. My mind was a complete mess. I couldn't understand anything. The only thing I could comprehend was that Catherine was determined. I wonder how much time has passed. Finally regaining some composure, I dialed up my mother. It was to verify the facts. But blurting out, "You've been harassing my wife, haven't you? It's so wrong to be harsh on Catherine," would just cause a quarrel. To keep the conversation calm, I started with casual chit-chat and tried to subtly probe her thoughts on Catherine. However, all she said was, "Catherine seems a bit out of touch. I wish she'd pull herself together," without making further comments about Catherine. Whether she was skillfully hiding something or just oblivious, I couldn't figure it out over the phone. What should I do? I was racking my brain, looking at the divorce papers. "Dad, are you okay?" It was Lily who approached me. I tried to quickly hide the divorce papers, but she said, "So Mom has finally made up her mind, huh?" It seemed like she had already figured out what was happening. Finally, "Did you know that Catherine wanted a divorce?" She didn't tell me directly, but I knew she'd been enduring a lot. Apparently, Lily had been recording my mother's harassment on her phone. She seemed willing to let me hear it, raising the volume to the max. "Catherine, haven't you cleaned again? You're a stay-at-home mom. You should do it every day. Seriously, you're hopeless." It seemed like this was what my mother had suddenly said to Catherine when she visited. "I'm sorry, Lily has a fever, so I thought it'd be better to keep the noise down." Lily has a fever. That's what happens when you live in a dirty environment. This just shows the importance of daily cleaning. Listening to this, I felt genuinely disgusted. While what she said was not wrong, there was an irritating, nagging, and unpleasant feel to it. Another recording started with my mother yelling at Catherine as she was preparing dinner. "What's with this bland food? Are you serving such awful meals to Johnson and Lily? Well, isn't it better to have less salt? It's healthier." Lily, indeed, too much salt is bad, but too little is just as harmful. This can wreck your health. I recall my mother visiting every 3 to 4 days. I can't believe Catherine had to put up with such constant nagging at least twice a week. As I stood there in shock, Lily sighed and said, "Mom has been enduring this all along. She loves you, Dad, and she knew how much you valued Grandma. But I'm sorry, I really hate Grandma. I don't want her at my wedding." Well, that makes sense. Even I would want to avoid someone as nagging as this in my workplace. But, while you can avoid or quit your job to escape such a situation, you can't do the same with your in-laws. I permitted my mother to frequently visit as I thought she was happy about her first grandchild and could be of help to Catherine. However, if such conversations occurred repeatedly, I can understand why Catherine would want to leave. There were several instances of overstepping that I reprimanded my mother for, and I thought she had improved. But the truth was, I couldn't protect the person I loved. I felt extremely regretful and sad. If making Catherine unhappy is inevitable, maybe it's better if we part ways, I muttered under my breath, and at this, Lily's expression hardened. "What did you promise God, Dad?" At her words, I tilted my head in confusion, only to see Lily's expression grow even more stern. "I might be a woman, but I want to support my future husband forever. He promised to protect me for the rest of his life. He even told you the same thing when he met you, didn't he? Aren't you supposed to protect Mom? Mom is also at fault here. You don't understand unless things are spelled out for you. Communication is so important, really, right now. Mom has no allies, Dad. Think about it." Lily said this calmly, then left the room. Her retreating figure overlapped with that of Catherine. When I decided to marry Catherine, I resolved to protect her at all costs. But now, Catherine is trying to distance herself from me. She's crumbling, trying to isolate herself. I stood up and took out the wedding ring that had been tucked away in the back of the dresser. We had kept it safe so as not to lose it during our busy work and parenting lives. It was worth 3 months of my salary at the time. Even though we hadn't worn it in a long time, the 2 rings retained their original shine and were still as beautiful as ever. The image of Catherine walking down the aisle with this ring on, I could never forget. Still unable to accept the idea of divorce, I decided to have another discussion with Catherine and headed to the bedroom. Upon entering, I found Catherine sitting on the bed with an awkward expression. "Do you have a moment to talk?" I suggested in a calm voice. Catherine, probably feeling guilty about suddenly pushing for divorce, agreed to talk. And I started by apologizing to Catherine first. With such intensity, it's like I'm ready to get down on their knees and beg. "I'm so sorry about what my parents did. I'm sorry I didn't notice. You must have been considerate of me because I lost a parent." When I looked up, Catherine had a complicated expression. "Do you really want to divorce me, Catherine?" I asked, my voice shaking. If Catherine was adamant about it, I couldn't force her to stay. But upon hearing this, Catherine started crying again. "I don't want to divorce you either, but it's impossible. I've reached my limit," she shouted, bearing her emotions. "I'm not good at cleaning, and no matter how hard I try in my own way, I'm always criticized and talked about as if I'm a failure. It's unbearable. I even purposely made my food bland for your elderly mother, considering her age. But she doesn't notice it, no matter how much I hint at it. If I state it clearly, I'm accused of not showing respect to elders." Catherine's screams continued for some time as her long-accumulated frustrations exploded. By the time she finished talking and calmed down, she was bowed down as if burned out. I feel pathetic for not noticing the change in Catherine until it got this bad. "I'm sorry. I promised to make you happy. I swore to do so when I gave this to you. I'm sorry for making you endure all this." I take out a ring. Seeing this, Catherine's eyes widen. "You are not a failure. You're my wonderful wife. Right after we got married, you gave birth to our daughter, Lily. I appreciate just that, but when I was flustered with the unfamiliar child rearing, you slapped me on the ass and scolded me. 'Pull yourself together,' you said. That really hit home, but because I was so careless, I lost my wedding ring and caused a big commotion. Lily was crying a lot at night, and I dropped the ring while walking around the house holding her, looking for it everywhere. It ended up being left on the living room table. That was pathetic. I remember participating in the relay race with Lily at the elementary school field day and falling down hard. Everyone laughed." "Oh yeah, I remember that happened." They didn't have to laugh that much, did they? I had never seen anyone do a full rotation in the air and fall. You became a legend at the elementary school. As we reminisce while looking at the ring, a small smile returns to Catherine's face. For Catherine, our family memories have not turned into painful things when she looks back. That alone made me feel at ease. Right now, in Catherine's heart, the desire to be away from me is stronger than those memories. I was stupid not to notice that she was pushed so far. I handed Catherine a divorce paper. "I know it's presumptuous, but I swore to God to protect you. Please, can you give me another chance? If it doesn't turn out to be the best outcome for you, you can submit this at any time." My name and signature are already on the divorce paper. If this is submitted, Catherine and I will become strangers. But if you could give me another chance, would you accept this ring again? I knelt down and offered the ring to Catherine. This is the pose I took when I proposed to Catherine. It seemed like Catherine remembered that too. Silence followed for a while. The silence, which felt incredibly long to me, eventually ended. I will trust you just this one more time, but this is really the last time. She held out her hand. It seemed like a reluctant response, as if she had lost a battle of wills with me. Whether it's out of mercy or pity, it doesn't matter. The fact remains that I've been given another chance. When I put the ring on Catherine's finger, it just barely fit. I couldn't help but laugh. It barely made it, and my eyes began to well up. That's right, we've been together for a long time, long enough to change the shape of our hands. I don't want it to end here. The next day, I headed over to my mother's place. Mom, I'm gonna be honest with you. I heard everything you said to Catherine, all recorded. Lily said she doesn't want you at her wedding. And that, Mom looked truly shocked. I am indebted to her for raising me, but the ones I have sworn to protect for life are not my parents, but Catherine and Lily. Did you feel shocked just now? That's what you did to Catherine. Why did you do that to her? Because she only finished high school. Just because she's a high school graduate, you deny all of her worth. You never listen to anyone when you've set your mind to something, and it's gotten worse as you've aged. If this continues, I can't let you meet my family anymore. As I said this sternly, Mom dropped her head. With a feeble voice, as though squeezing the words out, my mother opened up. You might not believe me, but I was truly happy when Catherine came into our family, as if I had a daughter of my own. I wanted her to learn my way of doing things, which is why I think I was strict with her. She didn't know many things, and I thought she would embarrass herself as she was. I was hard on her, considering that she lost her parents and didn't have a chance to learn. It's natural she couldn't do many things, but I only kept criticizing her. I know, as her mill, she couldn't voice out her opinions. Why couldn't I be more kind to her? According to my mother, the comment about not attending the wedding was actually a harsher way of saying she was worried about Catherine not being able to handle the manners and etiquette of such events. Even I am not perfect at handling these traditional customs. It seems like the harsh treatment was also due to neighbors commenting about Catherine's lack of etiquette. It appears the initial trigger was her not wanting Catherine, who she saw as her own daughter, to be talked about poorly anymore. I thought that it's just like my perfectionist mother. But, regardless of my mother's intentions, the recorded conversations were not excusable. I'm really sorry. If my precious girl left me, my mother, with her hands covering her face, was visibly shaken. It was the first time I saw my always assertive mother like this. When I went back home, I told Catherine and Lily about the day's events. Both of them had complicated expressions, but we concluded that we would try to understand and get closer from now on. My mother, learning that she needs to refrain from saying too much and that observing is also important, started to pass any comments through me, and our relationship improved. The relationship was mended to the point where she could attend Lily's wedding. And today is Lily's wedding. Lily, who resembles Catherine so much, is walking down the red aisle with me. Lily, who looks so happy as the ceremony is about to start. Seeing Lily like that, neither Catherine nor I can stop our tears. On our fingers, wiping away each other's tears, were the rings that we had used to pledge our love 23 years ago, quietly shining. How was it? Subscribing to the channel will be an encouragement for our work. See you again in the next video.